What's happening, family? It is your man, CRB Jr., Courtney Robert Brown Jr., here with the other half of Big Boss Filmworks, Big
What
Lou
up?
Stevens. What up,
Lou Stevens
fam?
in the house. What's happening?
Lou in the house, Lone Wolf,
Oh, man.
authorized dealer.
Authorized dealer.
Better ask somebody.
Heads no, baby. Heads no.
Better ask somebody. Before we get into the story, I'm going to tell you when I know I can fuck with Lou. For real. This way back in the day, Lou had just started his t-shirt business, and I was doing a gig, outdoor concert. I think it was the Pontiac Techno Festival.
Yes.
Shout out to Eddie Folks. Shout out to John David Simpson. Savannah Blues Restaurant. If you're in town, great place to get a meal. Eddie Folks, Godfather Techno. They were putting on that event, and it was like 600 shirts. I placed the order with Lou. Lou knocked out the order. Maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, just in conversation, he said something about his iron burnt out doing the job.
Right, because I was a little bit late with some of the shirts.
Right, and I was like, your iron burnt out. What are you talking about? So back in the day, this is when the press-on shirts had just come out.
Yeah.
But he didn't have time to get the press machine. So to get the order
Nor the money.
And later he would run a full t-shirt printing operation for us with presses and computers and
a large scale printer and the whole nine.
Importing our transfers from the paper ranch out in Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at this point it was truly grind mode.
Oh yeah.
And he told me that he had hand pressed all 600 of them shirts.
600 t-shirts.
To get that job done. I was like, okay. Fuck it. I'm sticking. We can do something with this guy. This guy, we need to bring him on the team because, that kind of commitment. But so here we are, man. Make sure you guys are hitting that like, share, and subscribe button. Thanks again for all the support and love being shown here at Big Boss Filmworks in the channel. Make sure you guys, if you have not checked out the award-winning documentary Motown Mafia, available Amazon Prime, Tubi TV. Its 10-year anniversary just passed. Award-winning, critically acclaimed. So make sure you check that out. If you guys haven't read the book, also Motown Mafia: Memoirs of a Kingpin's Kid, the story of Eddie Jackson and Courtney Brown. That's available at Amazon. Give it a shout. It'll really help you get some context to a lot of the content that you see here at Big Boss. Which you hear my man Eddie Baby. Shout out to Eddie Baby at Instagram. Shout out to True Street Crimes, doing what he's doing. And shout out to that brother who's trying to get this thing going, Chestnut, telling those YBI stories. Always shout out to the home team. Shout out to all the people who chime in. Shout out to Pap, shout out to Big Steve, shout out to Five, shout out to the Hut. Everybody who from back in the day that Scott, shout out to
Ice.
Yeah, Ice, all the family, all the real ones, man. So what I want to talk about today, though, is, we try to put in perspective because it's hard for people to understand what a big deal the Jackson organization was and what the kingpin, that phrase kingpin was like a real 1970s thing. Mm-hmm. By the mid-'80s, they had stopped using it. Yeah. And before that, they never really used it. But America had just become aware of this urban kingpin, this inner city black man drug lord, and of course when me and Eddie were growing up, the media was all over this, and so we're always finding some more stuff from the media days. I'm gonna be finding a lot more stuff and do some research, but we just came across, shout out to brother James Coleman. He did the archival work on this. Came up with, we found another headline article concerning Eddie and the fellas back in the day. This goes back to the Detroit Free Press, Sunday, May 23rd, 1976. Caption reads, this is front page of at this time, 76 Detroit is still one of the top 5 biggest cities in America. And this is the lead story in one of the major newspapers in the 5th largest city in America. So guys got to remember, I know it's hard. This is before there was CNN and 1,000 different cable networks. This is back when there's only ABC, CBS, and NBC.
That's right.
And every city's got 2 newspapers. And that's where, so for you to be able to crack that when there's only 3, your story's got to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Because people were starving. So you guys have heard, probably, and if you haven't checked it out, check out Eddie Jr.'s library. He talks about when his father came home in 83, he had hooked up with a guy who they were all locked up at Milan. All kind of cast of characters were up there. Demetrius was there. My old man was there. Eddie Old Man. The guy by the name of Richard the Penguin Wakefield. And Eddie's and Wakefield would hatch a plan while they were locked up in Milan that would lead to that 120 key run that they set up coming out of Pakistan, that Pep would be involved in, and that whole situation, that whole drama that played out between 1983 and 1985. But this guy Wakefield was a big deal back in the 70s. He's mentioned a little bit in some of the articles that you would find in the book Motown Mafia and some of the other stuff. But this article, this one, they had put Wakefield and Eddie's house on the front page again. Eddie's house stayed on the front page like the White House. They was always just taking pictures of Eddie's house. The captions read, and we'll post up the article on here. You got Richard Wakefield will not be able to enjoy his $95,000 home. Okay, stop right there. You're like, $95,000 ain't that much. This is $95,000 home in 1976, which in today's money is a $950,000 home. Richard Wakefield will not be able to enjoy his $95,000 home above shown in Southfield's subdivision for some time. Wakefield was sentenced last week to 15 years in prison on drug charges. It would be that sentence that would lead him to being in the federal penitentiary at the same time as Eddie, which would allow them to bond and then set up that big lick in the 80s. And then right next to it in the photos, they have Eddie Big Man Jackson's $95,000 showplace in Southfield is well guarded with burglar alarm systems and floodlights. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And they got, of course, this Rolls Royce. Looks like the Rolls or one of his Benzes is sitting in front of the parking lot. But I'm going to read the whole thing again. We'll post it so you guys. But just to give you, so this is the backdrop that me and Eddie are growing up in. Every week, every other month, our parent dads, and our home is on the front page. It was just a really big story, and just trying to give you some feedback, really, what it was like being a Kingpin's kid, man, for real.
Yeah.
Right. So, Richard Allen Wakefield's $95,000 home sits at the entrance of an elegant Southfield subdivision called the Ravines. Anybody who's familiar with Southeast Michigan knows the Ravines and how nice it is over there. And it's an exclusive upper-class subdivision, suburban subdivision, the kind of place where men are doctors, lawyers, dentists, where families belong to golf and country clubs and take winter vacations to Florida. On the outside, Wakefield's modern-style home does not appear different except for in architecture style from the other expensive, immaculately maintained homes on the Ravines, winding willow street-lined trees. The sweeping front lawn is neatly cut and the shrubbery is trimmed. There's a children's swing set, the media boy.
Yeah.
There's a children's swing set in the backyard. But here it comes in the big bold print. But unlike most of his neighbors, Wakefield is not a doctor or a lawyer. He's a drug dealer. See, once you're convicted, they can just call you a drug dealer and they ain't got to say allegedly or none
allegedly
of that.
Or any of that.
So he's lost all of that. And we know growing up what happens after that when you go from being allegedly a drug dealer to you get found guilty and then now you're just a drug dealer.
You're just right.
Okay, but Wakefield's not a doctor or lawyer. He's a drug dealer. Last Wednesday, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison for smuggling heroin from Southeast Asia to the United States. So see, Wakefield, and this is in the 70s, okay, he already was doing the move that he would later hook up with Eddie's old man and just reinitiate. So, you know, you've all seen American Gangster, right? And we know that's kind of fictitious because Frank Lucas did not do all that. It was a guy by the name of Ike Atkinson. Sergeant Smack, great book. Shout out to Ron Chespin and all of that. Yeah. But this guy Wakefield was doing the same move and on a very similar level. That he had the entrepreneurial sense and business acumen to set up the logistics to import directly that China White directly into the country in the 70s, right? So, okay, according to police, at least 10 residents of Southfield are suspected of being high-level narcotics dealers, and police officers believe many more dealers live there. While the drug trade flourishes in dope pads on the streets of Detroit, many of its upper echelon executives, like other corporate chiefs, live in the suburbs and particularly Southfield. Let me just stop there. So the media, for all of their sins, Lou, they had a realistic view that these guys' affairs are in the city and in the streets, but they don't.
Right. They're not.
They don't.
Right. They're not street level. They are going straight to Southfield.
And the media compares them, rightfully so, to other corporate executives. So again, the life that we grew up living, the lifestyle that we grew up living in, was so detached from where Pops and Eddie was making the money in the streets.
Yeah, definitely.
They don't show it on TV like that. You know, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You could watch Power.
Right. The guns and the dope in the same place.
Even though, like, the characters in Power, they were living good, you know?
Yeah.
But I have yet to honestly see Hollywood depict the grand lifestyle that, like, Eddie and Pops and guys like Wakefield. There was another guy that lived around the block from us, Leroy Canton. Who else was out there? God, R.I.P. Frank Nitty Usher was out there also.
Right.
I think another big guy at the time, Leroy Collier, was out there. They talk about in that article how many big fellas that moved out to the suburbs. And again, this is back when Southfield was a predominantly Jewish suburb. You know, the subdivision we grew up in, Northland Gardens, was voted in 1970 the most exclusive subdivision of a suburb in America. And that's why it was such a big deal, because people were like, how are these black men living like this? You know what I mean?
Right.
And even, well, to be honest, it hadn't been done before, and to that level, never been done since. I mean, I should think that. I mean, again, Meech and those guys had some $1 million homes spread out all over the country.
Yeah, and there was no real stigma with these kingpins living out in the suburbs amongst the people.
No, without going back into the article, in fact, they interview one of the white women out there, and she says, well, you know, they mind their own business, we mind their own business, and actually, you know, everybody knows who they are, and that's a surely kind of, everybody knew, like, who we were.
Right.
I mean, because it was always in the paper and on the news, but...
and they didn't treat you like your teachers and that sort of thing.
Much respect to our teachers there in Southfield. Even when that stuff was all in the media, no, they didn't. Some of the kids said some sideway things every blue moon, but as far as the administration and really our neighbors in general, I mean, if they played at our house, we played at their house. We all played Little League baseball together.
Yeah.
You know, Dad was one of the baseball coaches of the Little League basketball. He coached the Little League baseball and basketball team. Yeah. I look back, you know, those white parents knew exactly who this man was.
Yeah, and you got to think, you know, the DARE and the big, you know, war on drugs that was in the 80s. Back in the 70s, that didn't exist.
Oh, there was no right. This is BC, right? This is before crack, before AIDS. And to be honest, they're living in the suburbs in the same cushy life, so they are even more removed from this war on drugs kind of thing. It was just time to really tell a great untold Detroit story because it kind of covers Detroit at its zenith.
Very interesting story.
We decided that we were going to make a movie.
All right, Rich Rossi with you with Motown Mafia. I'm with Courtney.
Lewis Stevens.
Lewis Stevens, Courtney Brown.
Courtney Brown Jr.
And Alan Al Prophet Bradley.
And this is an entrepreneurial, inspirational story too, because again, you know, I'm a real estate retail guy. You know, that's what my skill set is. But I'm a businessman, so I was like, you know, we're gonna do it. You know, sometimes when you got a dream, you won't have all the answers on how you're gonna do what you're gonna do.
What made this one unique was not so much the crime, but the intertwining with Detroit's history and the Motown era and kind of the economic decline of Detroit. And it's really the story of a family. And from some perspectives, it's has a happy ending, like you said. For others, it didn't have a happy ending.
Right.